Argentina versus Egypt, a World Cup quarterfinal matchup that is absolutely going down in history, but maybe not for the reasons you'd expect. On paper, the record books are forever going to show a 3-2 victory for Argentina. But as anyone who actually watched it unfold knows, that scoreline barely scratches the surface of what really happened out there on the pitch. We're talking about a match defined by red cards, alleged off-the-ball strikes, and some pretty explosive post-game accusations. So welcome to this explainer, where we're going to break down exactly what transpired during the now infamous Atlanta incident.
So you have to ask yourself, was it a battle of football or a battle of wills? Because while the whole world tuned in expecting a standard, highly tactical knockout match, what we actually got was something entirely different. That 3-2 final score totally masks a decidedly darker narrative. I mean, we literally saw physical fights break out, a referee who appeared to completely lose his grip on the game, and post-match allegations that threatened to cast a massive shadow over the entire tournament.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the clash for the ages.
Picture this. July 7th, 2026, the Atlanta Stadium. This was billed as your classic David versus Goliath scenario. You've got Egypt, the definitive underdogs, playing with absolute freedom, going right up against the defending champions Argentina. And from the very first whistle, it became crystal clear that Egypt wasn't just there to show up and participate. They were there to seriously unsettle the reigning kings of world football. Just looking at the match timeline reveals the sheer whiplash of how this all played out. By the 67th minute, the unthinkable was actually happening. Egypt was up 2-0, thanks to a brilliant header by Yasser Brahim and a clinical finish by Mostafa Zico. Argentina looked sluggish, they looked desperate, and frankly, they were on the verge of the mother of all upsets. But then, look at this insane 14-minute window starting in the 79th minute. Christian Romero sparks the comeback. Then, almost immediately after, Lionel Messi equalizes, sending the stadium into an absolute frenzy. And then comes the dagger. Right in the 92nd minute, Enzo Fernandez heads home the winner, 3-2 Argentina. A breathtaking comeback, right? Well, yes, but this timeline is only the sporting side of the story.
That brings us to Section 2, a timeline of chaos. Dark arts. This was the exact phrase echoing out of the Egyptian camp. As the match started slipping away from them, the Egyptian players were visibly frustrated, claiming that their opponents were intentionally using these so-called dark arts to totally derail their momentum. Meanwhile, referee Francois Lectissier suddenly found himself at the center of an absolute storm, struggling to maintain order as multiple fights broke out and players from both sides became entangled in these super-heated exchanges.
And in the middle of all this chaos, certain incidents went completely unpunished, which obviously just threw more gas on the fire. Most notably, right in the 43rd minute, an Argentine player appeared to strike an Egyptian opponent in the face off the ball. No whistle, no card. Incidents exactly like this are absolutely crucial to understanding why the temperature of this match reached a boiling point before the second half even kicked off.
Which perfectly sets up Section 3, the disciplinary divide.
When you look at how the rules were actually enforced during those chaotic 90 minutes, a pretty startling anomaly emerges. The official match data brilliantly illustrates this divide. On one side, Egypt was just buried under a mountain of officiating scrutiny, racking up 6 yellow cards and 1 direct red card. On the flip side, Argentina finished the match with 0 cards. You can instantly see why this stark contrast became the major focal point of the post-match fallout.
0. Honestly, it's a staggering reality. In a game characterized by extreme physicality, heated altercations, and multiple off-the-ball incidents, the defending champions didn't enter the referee's book a single time. When you're trying to figure out the origin of Egypt's immense frustration, you really have to keep this giant 0 in mind.
And you know, the disciplinary chaos actually peaked on the sidelines. Egypt's head coach, Hassan Hassan, was initially booked for what was officially described as an anti-racism gesture before eventually being dismissed from the field altogether. Now, the Egyptian Football Association didn't just let this slide. They've since filed a formal official complaint with FIFA directly alleging that the referee's officiating was fundamentally biased.
And a huge chunk of that FIFA complaint heavily references a highly debated VAR decision. Let's walk through how this happened. A foul occurs. Nearly 30 full seconds of open play pass. Egypt scores what they firmly believe is their 3rd goal. But then VAR steps in and literally rolls the game back half a minute to disallow the goal based on that earlier foul. Throw in a really late, completely ignored penalty appeal involving Mohamed Salah, and it makes total sense why the Egyptian squad felt the officiating was fundamentally working against them.
Let's look at the aftermath in Section 4, the locker room contrast.
Once that final whistle finally blew, the teams retreated to their locker rooms, and honestly, it was like they had just participated in two completely different realities. The juxtaposition here is just incredible. Both sides were in tears, but for entirely different reasons. On one hand, you have Egypt's Mustafa Ziko weeping as he apologized to his nation, openly stating the match was rigged and claiming the tournament is, quote, directed towards Argentina. On the other hand, you have Argentina's manager, Lionel Scaloni, breaking down in tears during his post-match interview, but not out of guilt, out of the overwhelming relief of a great escape. He couldn't even finish his comments. Two parallel emotional breakdowns born from the exact same 90 minutes of football.
And the accusations certainly didn't stop with the players. Egypt's dismissed coach, Hassam Hassan, came out swinging with explosive allegations, claiming that FIFA simply prioritized money, ensuring that Lionel Messi stayed in the tournament at all costs. And what a contrast that was to the scenes over in the Argentine dressing room, where Messi, who let's not forget, actually missed a penalty earlier in the game, was being joyfully thrown into the air by his teammates, celebrating their miraculous survival.
Which brings us to our final point, Section 5, Justice or Just Chaos.
The dust might have settled on the pitch, but the implications of this match, far from over. Argentina advances to face Switzerland, keeping their dream of back-to-back World Cup titles alive by the absolute thinnest of margins. But for Egypt, a heroic, truly historic underdog journey ends abruptly in a massive cloud of conspiracy and bitterness. The real tragedy for football fans is that the Atlanta incident probably won't be remembered for the incredible tactical setup by Egypt, or even that breathtaking 14-minute comeback by Argentina. Instead, it just leaves this permanent scar, remembered for the fights, the glaring disciplinary disparity, and the lingering unresolved questions of fairness.
So, knowing all the facts, seeing the timeline, the unpunished strikes, the crazy zero cards, and the raw emotion pouring out of both locker rooms, was it a fair contest, or was it just pure chaos? I'll let you decide, but that is definitely something football historians will be debating for decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you love deep dives into the complex realities behind the sports headlines, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future explainers just like this one. Catch you next time.